On this episode of The Honest Mechanic. Because this thing turns over pretty good. Actually, maybe too good. Alright, so this gear selector, as you can see, it's not quite doing its job. What in the world? Alright, let's check for some oil. Always check oil level first, guys. Very first thing you should do on any small engine. Why? Because they just all burn oil. I don't care which one you have. Whether it be a Briggs & Stratton, a Tecumseh, a Power More, all of these engines, they just, some more than others, but they just all burn oil. So make sure you got enough. And we're looking good. It's a little dark, but it's there. Smells a little bit like gas. Nothing too crazy. Okay, let's move on and make sure we got some fuel or gas. Yeah, we got some gas in there. I mean, without actually doing a check and draining out some of the gas, we don't know if it's mixed with any water. But we're gonna hope. It smells like gas, so we're gonna hope that it's got actual gas. But we're gonna go through the whole thing. We're gonna check the belts, make some adjustments, because apparently this thing does not throw snow, or if it does throw snow, it doesn't throw it very far. And that could be a number of things. Could be a belt, could be low on power because the carburetor's dirty, could be a blown engine. I don't think that's the case, because this thing turns over pretty good. Actually, maybe too good. So let's go through the whole start procedure. So we got our choke. Give her a couple of primes. We know we got gas. This thing does not. That's right. There's no. So these Briggs & Strattons will have two different models. Some of them will have throttle control with an on-off, so you can regulate your RPM. This one simply has on and off. So it's governed to whatever the manufacturer states is good. Let's give it a couple of pulls and see if it goes. So that's not good. That's revving right out. Oh boy. So we know it's good. We know it runs. But as you heard there, that thing just, you take the choke off and it just wants to scream. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at the governor. And the governor on these things is mounted underneath this fuel tank. So let's start by, you know what, no. I think I want to check the belts first, because that's easier. I mean, and not to mention, if we're going to do a run to the parts store, you know, let's not do it twice. So let's take a look at the whole thing before we do a run. But this is just 2 3/8 on the top here. Why am I using a ratchet when I got power tools? Actually, that brings up a good point. I mean, I've been doing mechanical work now for almost 20 years. Don't judge my age. But yeah, for almost 20 years, I guess. And if I had a question for you guys that you can add in the comment section is, how many of you actually remember using a ratchet instead of a ratcheting wrench? Because my wrenches, when I first started, did not have that fancy ratcheting feature at the bottom. So that's a lifesaver. And even something like this, an impact with a battery, everything was on airlines, which was kind of annoying. It was annoying. It was in the way, you tripping the lines all the time. So I just used the wrench, but hey, technology. So this is looking okay in here. So far I'm not seeing too much of anything in here. Everything looks good. The belt looks nice and fresh. So we're just going to give it a quick turn all the way around, and that way there we'll know. But until then, let's just assume it's okay. So a quick way to check these that I like to do is I just like to put some pressure on the lever, make sure everything's engaged, and with the engine switched off and also with the ignition off, I will slowly just rotate the recoil, and I have to say that has to be off. All of the ignition system has to be off because this will want to try and start. You don't want that. So yeah, look at this. Both belts are looking fantastic. So I'm happy with that. There's a little bit of slack. I might be able to add a tiny bit of tension on that. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. But I guess we're pulling the tank. And these are 10 millimeters. And that's kind of annoying about these engines, or these whole snowblower setups, because you have to have like a full toolbox of tools to be able to work on them. Part of it's metric, part of it's standard. It's kind of annoying. All right, so what else do we have? Oh yeah, I forgot. We got 8 millimeters back here. So we got one holding this cover on. Get that out of the way, and 2 more back here. So what I'm going to try and gain access to here, guys, is obviously the governor, but normally on these guys, they're so tucked in, it's unreal that this would actually be tampered with. If I had to guess, before I even open this up, is I have a suspicion that it's rusted in place, because a lot of times these engines or these snowblowers are stored outside or underneath the deck or something like that, and they get rained on from time to time, obviously, so that will cause some of those components to rust in place, and because they're not moving, they're not doing their job. So we're hoping that we can free them up. Like, here's a good piece of evidence right there. This connector right here on this switch is just, it's on there tight. It's all green. We're going to clean that up while we're in there. And by the way, these here, because it's just a single pole, single throw switch, it doesn't really matter which side you put it on. You can mark them if you like, but it doesn't really matter. All right, moving on to 2 more 10s on this side. Reaching for these guys under the handle. Perfect. Now we should be able to get this loose. And of course, being careful that we don't disconnect the fuel, because we don't want to mess it everywhere. Okay, we're gonna leave that just like that. It should be okay, because we're not going to be there for too long. But underneath here is going to be our governor assembly. And what do you guys think? Let me set up the camera. You guys can get a better look at what we have in there. Ready for this? Is it going to be rusted? I don't know. Okay. Well, it doesn't seem to be too bad. So what the heck could it be? The way this works, guys, is this here is running off the cam or off the crank. I don't remember exactly, but it senses speed, and it has a little a flyweight on there, and then as it pushes up against the gear, it pushes this lever whichever way that it's. Oh, you know what? Ooh, look at that. That is like so frozen solid. So that's not working. But what is frozen? Is it in here? Or, oh, you know what? I'll bet you it's the carburetor. Because this is wanting to move. The carburetor is the culprit. Aha! I knew something was going to be, either seized solid. But that just means we've got to take it apart even further. Alright, at this point, if I got to take this carburetor off, I'm resorting to my lift, because I don't feel like breaking my back. Man, I love this lift. Oh, and speaking of lift, I recently had a comment about making a video on how I made this lift. Unfortunately, I can't do that because I didn't make this lift. I got it from my father-in-law, which I have no idea where he got it. That's all I can give you at this point. I'm going to try spraying some penetrating oil directly onto the affected area. And I'm going to let it soak for a little bit. Because I think, so this throttle plate inside has a shaft. And clearly it's seized, or it rusted, and it probably expanded in the aluminum housing. That's probably what has happened. And unfortunately, I don't want to break anything. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. Some people like carnage. I like my own amount of carnage, but not today. Because I really want this guy to run. So we're going to let that sit for a minute, and then we'll come back. Maybe put a set of pliers on it, see what happens. So it's been about 5 minutes. And let's see what we have. I'm going to try and clip on a pair of pliers here. I think this will work right here. And I'm going to gingerly try and rotate it. So if I rotate this, that rod's got to go, which way is it got to go? In. So if I go counterclockwise, yeah, counterclockwise, it should break free. Put ever so slightly. Oh, yes. Yes, it's moving. Now it should snap back on its own. And it's not doing that. See, I gotta force that. Maybe if I work it back and forth a little bit. Yes! Yes! Looks like it's working. Did I just save this carburetor with penetrating oil? That never happens. Really? Let's see now. Take the pliers off. Oh, darn it. It's so close. See how it... Because if it was to ask for full throttle, it would stay at full throttle. Unless it was at full throttle. Oh, check it out! It's free! It is free! Sorry, I'm shaking the camera because it's leaning up against the lift, but it's free! That is so cool. Penetrating oil. Sometimes we just consider the worst. I thought it was going to be an internal problem. I thought I was going to have to break this motor apart. That is so much better. Okay, so let's throw it back together so that we can hear it run. See if it fixed it. Of course, we can't leave this like this before we fire it up. And now we can get rid of this. And instead we can clip in these. Guys, you're not going to believe this, but I'm almost back together. I'm literally like 3 bolts away. And I wanted to put the switch back in place so I could shut it off in case anything happened. And look at that. I just broke the terminal right off. So now this switch is completely useless. So I might not actually be able to fire this up tonight. But let's go see what we got. I thought one of these for sure had... Where the heck? Oh, that's not on this side. Maybe it's over here. I always like to keep a little bit of extras of stuffing. Oh yeah, see, this is all my... This is my charging station, by the way, in case you guys were wondering. This is where I charge my microphone and a couple other things. You might have seen it in the background. And my trouble lights, because I try and use those during the videos. Hey, what about this? Hey. Hey. Hello, you. It's clicking. Okay, let's get a multimeter on this. Maybe this will work. Okay, I'm going to try and do this with one hand, but let's make sure the meter works. Yeah, my meter's a little bit slow, by the way. Check this out. Takes a second for it to register. Always been like that. I'm not sure why. So let's see. Okay, so nothing there. What if I flick the switch? And come on. Still nothing? Maybe this one's bad too? Actually, it's not bad, guys. I mean, I just didn't get a good connection. There you go. Awesome. Let's go see if that fits. Alright. Here goes nothing. Now, I don't know which direction that switch is supposed to be in, so I'm not going to touch it. We know it starts pretty good. So I'm going to assume that if after 2 pulls it won't start, probably on the wrong side. Okay, so let's flick this over. Wow, these are loud. Woo! But it works. That's awesome. So there's just a couple other adjustments I need to do. And sorry if I'm yelling. It's because these are really loud. So yeah, I'm just noticing now, like this here, I gotta show you this. This is pretty bad. And I want to adjust a little bit of cable tension here just to get a bit more friction on that belt. So let's get the camera back here. Alright, so this gear selector, as you can see, it's not quite doing its job. So it looks like the hole is a little bit mangled. I'm going to try and maybe tighten up this bolt and see if I can make that work. And lubricate that spring, because I got a feeling that's probably why that's like that. And if ever you guys wanted to tighten up the tension on the belt, you would just have to do that right here. You can loosen these off a little bit, and if you go lower, you have a little bit more tension on the wheel. Higher, you would release the tension. Well, hate to say, but it looks like we've got just about as much tension as we're going to get on this particular belt, unless it may not be the correct belt, but no way of knowing unless you buy another one. But it seems to be working pretty good. I'm going to go maybe try it in the snow after, but we're just going to air up some tires because I can tell the tires are a little bit soft. And yeah, this is cool. And look at that. Made in Canada. And off camera, what did I do? Well, I changed the oil. I took a look at the augers in here. I made sure that everything was cool. We got all of the proper shear pins in place, and that's kind of important, guys. You don't want to run a shear pin or a bolt that's heavier grade than it needs to be. So everything in here is cool. There's nothing in the auger. And of course, I got all this fixed up. So we got our linkage, forward, reverse working properly. And all we need to do now is go test it outside. I don't have much snow, but I do have some. So let's go see what it does. I think that's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And I mean, this guy here runs fantastic now. I mean, from a motor that was just completely over revving, linkages that were way out of place, and some pretty darn low tires, it runs really, really good. As you saw there, it throws snow far enough. Probably get it a little bit better adjusted if we actually had this chute slightly down, get some more distance on there. But we got some good snow conditions for that. So again, thank you so much for watching. And as always, if you liked the video, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. And good day.